So, welcome to the Wholeness Wisdom Podcast. It is this series' aim to provide people with straightforward tools and insights for awakening from the sense of lack and habits of the limited sense of self, or what could be called the ego. It is my pleasure today to introduce Tobias English. He is a certified practitioner in various modalities for integrating these limitations. So, Tobias, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Erin. Thank you. It's an honor to be in the presence of your curiosity and to be asked questions that are relevant. My bio is all different lengths, but the one we'll go with is a super short one, which is that I came into the world uh, kind of fighting, antagonistic, needed relief from all kinds of really confusing uh, ideas that I learned about myself, and through various collapses, um, in the sense of uh, yeah, surrendering, which I think is one of the questions you have, has just been key, because I was in battle not just with people outside myself but also within, and it was kind of a spiky uh, lifestyle with lots of running, head in the sand, uh, denial of good influence, good influences all around me, and until I just couldn't maintain uh, the fight, I couldn't keep up the fight against my own intuition, my own wisdom, which had been beckoning me to investigate this whole time.
Happy to have you here. And so we will aim to be useful to others today. That's our hope for today. So let's get into that. And full disclosure here, Tobias is my partner in these therapies. We are both trained in these same modalities, and he's also my partner in life. So we're on this path together, and we both help people one-on-one. But given that, we come from very different backgrounds. Me from a decades-long eating disorder, and he with his own serious traumas. So we hope that our different perspectives and experience can be helpful today. And our show is about exasperation and desperation. It's our topic today, and how these intersect with not only healing from trauma, but also waking up to our true nature, specifically to awareness or the non-dual perspective. So I could begin with our first question here, Tobias, if you're ready.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that question is, what is exasperation for you? What do you think exasperation is characterized by?
yeah. uh, Let me count the ways. No, it's usually it's kind of like exasperation is like frustration, but it's a little bit more. It's frustration to the point of like, I admit to myself and anyone within earshot that I am I am beyond my capacity to manage
Mm,
the situation. The situation is too much for me, the person or the personal me. And
mm,
yeah, it's bored. Boredom is key. Like it, and it tends to be kind of like um, a push pull experience of like stubbornness. And yeah, when I got sober, over 10 years ago, it was because I was bored of being stubborn. I could see how exhausting it was to me and everyone else. And so I was exasperated and desperate, and those are
Mm-hmm.
intertwined. But
Mm-hmm.
exasperation doesn't have to be visible on the outside, but it usually is, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
People
So,
have a face where it's just like, oh, it's a beyond an eye roll. It's like I give up.
mm-hmm. Yeah, you said, it's exhausting. And so if exasperation is that exhausting, I give up. What about desperation? Is that any different as you see it?
Desperation may include an honesty with another person. It's like exasperation that's to the point where I will tell someone I am out of my depth and things feel very and also my experience with desperation is that when I finally hit my bottom with drugs and alcohol, it was a desperation that included me reaching out to God, or which internally, externally, it made no difference. I was just like, whatever the broadest idea of God is, I'm I'm open again. And this time it's like I'm not gonna hold back. I am here putting myself at the reality that is like I'm before I got a year before I got no. I think a potent prayer for me has been, God, show me what's really going on.
Mm,
And then that can be said with various levels of intensity or curiosity. And the more intense and the more curious, the better, because it, that's just surrender. It's a way of saying, I see that my system of beliefs is painfully limited.
mm, That reminds me of the obsessive thinking that I had in my years of struggle and addiction. It's just the mind would not stop. And for me, desperation was really, um, it really encompassed the realization that I couldn't think my way out of my suffering, that that was not going to work.
And how many tries, how many
Mm,
times did we attempt to think or read the books? How many books, just
mm,
self-help books, did you read? I read a lot, you
Hundreds.
know.
Memorizing, underlining.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that was helpful too, because the head needs its reasons, and then of course peace is beyond reason. So uh, we'll get to that, but like, yeah, there's there's an end to reason where like reason doesn't isn't helping the
Right.
the peace. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think we both had to, we reached that point of desperation and something changed from the mental interpretation of, um, understanding to more of a sensation based exploration. So that was a big shift for me. It was recognizing the mind wouldn't get me there. And then, what else is there? So, but you mentioned something I want to not skip over, and that was that surrender, or God, what is really going on. And some people have problems with that word God, no matter what it means for an individual. What does it mean? What do you mean when you say surrender?
Well, it's like I said before, the word collapsing works for me in that like entropy, every bridge that's standing now is going to fall if statistics are correct and time is real. And because that's thermodynamics for you. So there's a collapsing happening all the time. Every idea I have of myself collapses at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be born, prevail, and then disappear, and that disappear. So the surrender is just an open, honest, willing, like I'm unqualified for this amount of tension, and I don't know how to get it, how to like even know that it will pass, but uh, yeah, it's sort of like just knowing I'm outmatched
Hmm.
with the circumstance. The situation is very, it's too complex for my mind, or
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
it's like saying waving a white flag and saying help. I I need help somehow from a person. From, uh, yeah, little birdie can tell me whatever, something.
Mhm. Being,
Who'd
yeah,
have
open
thought?
to something else, something that's
Yeah.
not, my way of reason. Okay, very nice. Okay, so collapse. I like that.
And there's a comfort in that surrender. There's a relaxing immediately
Mm.
upon surrender. In my experience today,
Mm.
the collapsing happens, and then there's an experiencing of like, oh, there was a lot of psychic energy in place trying to hold up this idea, um, that yeah, that I'm a man in America in XYZ circumstances,
Mm.
and with certain past and certain possible future and possible, branches. I don't know. Materialism is tends to think of time as a line with possible branches, and yeah, a a joy or an immediate in the surrender that there has been for me, a relief, like an experience of relief. Like I don't have to think this hard. I don't have to solve this. I can't. I know that I can't already. So let
Mm.
me just feel that like relaxing as I, yeah,
Mm.
like
Excellent.
like swimming off the Niagara Falls or any like just why swim? Just let it happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just going with the flow instead of fighting the current. Yeah, I really like what you just brought up, which is really important, I think, to highlight is that we are not aiming to encourage people to think more or get more information or hold on to any information or use their mind more or memorize anything else. It's really stepping into that relief. Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
and part
easiest
of
way.
that relief is realizing like, um I've lost face. Like I was trying to keep my face. It's like, do I want to save my ass or my face? Let me save my ass. And how much energy was I spending trying to save face?
Right.
That all can be freed up. All that energy that was trying to like look interesting or together
Mm-hmm.
can be, integrated into the whole system, not be bound up.
Right. The face, the image, and I also like that you said the idea that I'm, a man in America, all these ideas of ourselves, not just our outward appearance, but the ideas we hold of ourselves. That's really what we can let go of and have
Yeah.
a lot more relief and energy released through that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So for the next question, it's just to say for people listening, how could being desperate or ready in some way to have this relief lead to freedom from issues in their lives, like concrete issues, whether it's, an eating disorder or addiction or alcoholism or just, relationship troubles and identity, how does this desperation lead to freedom from these kinds of issues, as far as you know it?
Well, some people are not malcontent. They're not bored with being a person pushing a rock up a hill every day. Or they they're it's their karma to not be interested in a deep peace. They just want to go from one uh, getting to another, and and even a lot of times, sometimes being generous. If I think I'm a person and I want to be generous as a person, I'll make sure I'm seen when I put the dollar in the tip jar or something.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and uh, I don't know what I was. Oh yeah, so it's that kind of self-consciousness is exhausting, whether it's known or not. Like, but some people are fine with it.
Mhm.
But I'm just like aware that I don't have enough energy to waste managing your opinion of me through acts that are visible. Like,
Right. Yeah. And so the person as a person, you said, putting the
right, yeah,
money in the
yeah,
tip jar as a person. So what do you mean? Like, we are talking about investigating who
R-
we really are.
right.
What do you
So
mean?
when if people are, it seems to me people do get to the end of their rope at some point and they get exasperated and desperate. And I'm just not there to see it most of the time. I hear about it later,
Mhm.
or I can imagine that, being in a body in the world, functioning in culture is hard. And it's made harder by not investigating
Mhm.
what's actually at play. And but but again, some people, and I don't relate to them, they're not interested in um, what's there's a psychological like oh yeah, my mommy didn't, she spanked me when she should have held me, type of cause and effect idea. That's wanting to know the roots of my suffering got me into some psychology, and then into Buddhism, into sitting. And then, in the sitting, there was a lot of body scans, which for me were frustrating and like, uh, it seemed like lots of pockets of my body are completely off limits, or too tight, or it's frustrating and confusing just to try to like mentally imagine that I could make sense of the space of the body. So, but relentlessly, stubbornly, I turned my stubborn, or whatever the stubbornness was turned into, the openness to like scan the body r over and over for,
Mhm.
some years.
Mhm.
And then, um, yeah, as you know, well, briefly, so I had some ability to experience kinesthetic presence, the feel, like the sensation of lungs moving,
Mhm.
or ribs moving, the body moving, the sensation of sitting in a chair.
Mhm.
All that was great, but it was kind of got me to a place where when I got really blindsided by my idea of intimacy in a relationship, the floor just dropped out, and I was completely confused. And
Mhm.
I had heard about the God show me what's really going on prayer a year prior, and was like, yeah. And I think God actually was like, oh, okay, you want to know what's going on? Here's a relationship based on your beliefs about who you are and what you think in terms of transactional human stuff, and closeness to yourself, and like here. And the floor was gone, and so I got a new level of desperation, a new uh, impetus to go, okay, reality. And I may or may not have used the word God
Mhm.
at this point, but like at this point, I to me, God was infinite context, like the substratum.
Hmm.
And so I said, okay, I don't know what's going on. It hurts to be me. It hurts to be, and I never want to be this blindsided again. Show me again what's really going on, or show me deeply. And then the core transformation and wholeness work kind of showed up. A friend, our mutual friend Robert, told, said he was getting certified and he needed a family and friends person to go through it. Was I willing? And I said, yeah. And turns out the body scans have come in useful in the feeling, the ever changing experience of sensation, whether it seems localized, yeah, with
Excellent.
definite border or not. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that really is highlighting one, my hilarious memory of body scans, which was horrendous. And every time someone suggested a body scan, I rolled my eyes and really didn't know how to do that. It turns out I had been, no surprise, highly dissociated for most of my life and just didn't know how. I didn't know what that meant to do a body scan. But as you said, stubbornness, persistence, there was some amount of at least curiosity about that. And that was part of my desperation, was being curious, can I stretch the comfort zone? And the sensation piece is really key. I think that last bit that you said about localization, because ironically, in waking up to ourselves, we are shifting our perspective on, how big we are or what our limitations really are. And that would sound like we're going to be bigger than the body. But ironically, we have to go through the body in order to experience ourselves as unlimited and free from the limits of the body. So,
Mm.
so you said that the body scans helped you. Was there anything else that prepared you for this kind of deep self-investigation?
Well, about the body scans, it was one of those things that just want to say that there was a part that wanted to do it right. And some people say, yes, scan from the head down. Other people would say scan from the feet up. And I was like, kind of white knuckling, like, I want to do it right. What's the official right way to do this? And, which is ridiculous. And on some level, I knew this is ridiculous. Yet there's this self-referential inner narrative kind of speaking in first, second, and third person to something, uh, to what it thinks was something that could respond, like and do a little more research and do it right. And just for the record, there is no doing it right when it comes to body scans. There, it's like whatever is noticeable with our eyes closed is a body scan. And
Yes.
like can seem like it's inside the body or outside the body or hot and cold and stuff. And as you know, utilizing sensation qualities is, or like being able to name them is a nice bit of integrating the mental with the the awareness. And speaking of awareness, when I was 14, I took LSD, and it was one of those profound, like, for the first time, listened to some amazing music and hung out with friends and like just had my whole, all my beliefs about what I was just kind of, they became transparent and then dissolved into nothing. And so I was experiencing like this fluid, untainted, a zero pain state, a zero self-consciousness state, not a person, just like a complete wondering and a wonder at, and as that voyage ended, as I came down and I started experiencing identity as a person again, I was like, oh, this this again, holy crap. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to find out what this is, the release of bondage, because how could something so small, this tiny little speck of a drug, remove everything I thought I knew about everything? And so there, there's a drug reference there. It's like, some people don't need to do psychedelics. I went on and did a bunch more trying to like recreate it and realized like, yeah, it can't be really reached uh, in that way or in any sustained way. But there are always metaphors and deep learnings and an awareness that like, oh, coming back from that, I'm not the same, which ties into like a piece that we know, which is that there's no repetition in reality. There's just not even a whirlpool in a river stays in the same location or so. But
Right.
yeah, just so ever since then, I've been like on some level really interested in reality or what is going on here, which has led to science, and
I
yeah.
just want to say that it's so relatable, your experience, because I think there are so many different ways people get a sense of losing themselves. Whether it's orgasm or it's um for me, my eating disorder issues, there was a lot of kind of bodilessness, and but the you highlighted the main issue is that like wanting to recreate that is a special realm of hell. And it's I was in that realm of hell for what seemed like a very long, the majority of my life, and but that was also a useful impetus to find out how to organically be that way without any drugs, without hurting anybody else, including myself, doing no harm. And there was a faith underneath that it was possible to do that. And it turns out it's possible to not do and be that. And so that's kind of the point of this podcast, is to describe kind of how to dissolve those layers of separateness within ourselves without any experiences or relationships or objects.
Yeah, if we can do it, anybody can. That's something that I truly, you know, the word belief now is kind of like got a Advaita circles. Belief is a dubious place, but as a convention for communicating, I'll say that I believe that if I can come to a surrendered place or a state of like, okay, I'm teachable. Like reality teach me in the form of people, places, things, all this stuff to do what's not intuitive for me, which is to turn the camera 180 degrees, so to speak, in a way, like to lose interest in someone over there fixing me,
Mm-hmm.
than anybody can. And you know this too, because we're not special.
I think we both live by that mantra in some ways. It definitely propels my interest in helping other people. Because if this could be turned around, then I think pretty much anyone can too. So I think that's probably a good length for today, to not, have this go on for too long. We could really talk about these things endlessly.
I'm just noticing,
Yeah,
well, we mentioned a wholeness work and core transformation and but we didn't really mention self-investigation, and
a little
but I
bit.
just want to tack on there that um, self-investigation is this curiosity distilled, this curiosity about what is happening here, what is really going on. The scientists have gotten to a place where the uncertainty principle is a real sticking point, and the hard problem of consciousness is unsolvable, and so with that, we can kind of be on the shoulders of giants, and people have gone and done this already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but it is a solo expedition to go, is it possible to know myself? Is it possible to have values that will engender the the surrender necessary, or the opening necessary to let go of the part of, to not even let go, to see what I'm not. And the neti neti just approach is the first part, is we see what we're not. And that's it's not like a thing that lasts a certain amount of time and it's over. It's just one side of the coin. And that the what I'm not is, I just want to point out something that one of my practices, that, well, I get exasperated these days even, and I will write down on a paper like some uncensored, fully like very heavy metal lyrics, like very like disjointed and not proper. And but the heading of that page, or if I write down 3 pages, the heading of it is what I'm not. I'm awareness experiencing a character who's got a lot to say
The
from
blah
a bunch
blah
of different
blah.
points. Yeah, that self-referential inner narrative.
Hmm.
I have so far been powerless to stop it. It's fine. But as I see that it is something that is in flux constantly and diluted, I can see it as essentially a failed system of trying to control the world. And I
Hmm.
can see that that whole system is what I'm not.
Mm.
When I'm labeling in my mind, if there's nothing to do and I'm sitting there and like having a conversation in my head about something, I can just ask, is this useful, practical, or is this just some habit of thinking I'm a person and I've got to solve this
Hmm.
thinking problem by thinking some more? And if not, I can say that's what I'm not. I'm the awareness
This.
of seeming duality. And so that is where the rubber hits the road in my mind regarding this work, this core transformation, wholeness work. It can take what seems like a never-ending therapeutic approach and just actually land it in, okay, um, the wrong questions were being asked. Like, why is this happening to me?
What do I do to fix it?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I like really I'm grateful that you brought up the what I'm not piece, because the episode right before this one is about the narrative, the inner narrative, and wondering, you're questioning, is that coming from a biological sensation, or is that just a habit? And it's a really useful practice. And I notice you practicing that, and it's effective to say, that's what I'm not. And even casually in the house, we're not trying to be, Jesus walking on water around here. It can be like, man, I really would love some ice cream. And that's what I'm not, the one who's, desperate for ice cream. And it can be a playful and useful reminder to just throughout the day notice what the narrative is saying, and then lose interest in the narrative and just call it what it is. It's what I'm not. And it's not wrong. It's just not the whole picture.
Yeah. And lots of compassion can come from body scans that have evolved into body scans sans narrative. Because narrative internal doesn't cultivate generosity or compassion or empathy. It's just as more stories to stay removed from that over there.
And that
And
was, quite impossible, quite hard for me to begin with, but I don't think it needs to be that way for everyone. And it might be shocking to hear for some people out there that it's possible to do a body scan without any inner narrative.
Yeah, it's quite pleasant.
It's quite pleasant. So I think that we could wrap it up now. And is there anything that you'd like to add before we close this?
No, I went on those tangents, so I
Okay. Okay.
and those were like yeah. I as my old teacher Jerry Stocking used to say, truth can never be spoken, so there's always more to say.
Yeah, there's always more to
And
say.
and yeah, words are not actually uh, they can be a little bit like a thorn that's used to pry out another thorn, kind of like a concept removing another concept. Turns out those timeless metaphors can be are timeless. They're
Yeah,
good.
they're timeless.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you for getting me to do this because we uh it's a, I get to celebrate with memory, using memory to celebrate, like, oh yeah, uh, I'm recalling now the idea that I was a body that had XYZ trials, and I can appreciate not having those trials now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I really appreciate that too, that we can now compassionately help others and relate, yet not be identified in that past version of ourselves. All right. So thanks for those listening for joining us for this episode of the Wholeness Wisdom Podcast. And we will explore further in episodes to come. And if you like this, please subscribe or share it to those you think may enjoy. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will be seeing you, hearing you soon.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.